This is connected to the internet, and chances are, so are you. Whatever device you're watching this on is connected to the internet, your router, you may have a smart plug, you may have game systems, you may have so many other devices in your home that are connected to the internet. And on this channel, we hack those types of things. But we don't do anything illegally. Think of it this way. You want to be an awesome kung fu fighter, but you don't want to just go around kicking random people in the face on the street. So you go to a dojo, you go to some sort of place that is a safe haven for doing bad things, for good reasons. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to build, and I mean we are going to figure out how to build an IoT hacking and testing lab. And in a future video, we're going to go over building a virtual lab. But first, I've got to clean my room. If you want to follow along, you're going to need three things. A router, any old router will do. A laptop, just to configure everything. And some devices to attack. You can use IoT devices or mix it up with a phone or laptop. There it is. The Nighthawk Smart Router. A bunch of random laptops. This is going to be the crux of our lab. Everything here, all of the IoT devices are going to go through this router. So we have one Nighthawk router. So currently I'm doing a little bit of research just to make sure that everything goes smoothly. But check out this startup sequence. Pretty colors. I love pretty colors. All right. Okay, so first, what we need to do is go ahead and download our firmware. So we're going to go over to the DDWort website, ddwort.com. It's ddwrt.com, and go over to the downloads page. The downloads page is going to have an entire database of routers, and we're going to search Netgear because that's what we have. And now I'm going to look for the model number. Ours is R6700. Yours may be different. If you're following along, make sure that you're typing the model number of your router. And we are going to look for DDWort factory image. So that is the actual image that we need to install. And we'll go over exactly what that means later. But this is the web upgrade. If you're doing this for the first time, you won't need the web upgrade. You'll just need this image, and you're going to want the CHK file. That's the same for all of them. Now that we've downloaded that, we're going to disconnect from our home network. So right now, I'm disconnecting from my home network, and I'm finding the router. It's already plugged in and turned on and all of that, so we're good. It is the Netgear 64. It may look like a different SSID for you. Beautiful. Okay, so now we need to go in our browser and type in 192.168.1.1. This is a special IP address that allows you to access your router. This is your router's admin page. It detects if there's an existing router in our network, and we don't really care about that. What we're trying to do is set up this on its own subnet, pulling from another router's internet connection. I've gotten an error. I have an error. That's fine. It says no Ethernet cable is plugged into the router internet port. And that's totally okay. Broadband and modem port. Do you want Netgear to try again? No, I'm actually going to configure this myself. And you know what? Before plugging that in, I'm going to go ahead and say I want to configure this myself because we don't need that here. remember, we're going to be flashing this with an entirely different operating system. So this Netgear admin account settings, this literally won't matter. I'm going to set the most secure password ever. You can probably guess what it is. And we don't really care about the security questions because it doesn't matter. This one is going to be Kent, and this is going to be purple. Never answer security questions correctly, by the way, because oftentimes people can find out information like this. However, I'm surprised about the first Netgear product you've purchased. That's pretty interesting right here. Okay, now we want to do the best password of all time. Admin. Okay, so we don't care about any of this at all. This does not matter. This does not matter. We don't have internet. That's completely okay. That is completely okay. And now we want to go to the advanced, and we want to find a firmware update. Administration, router update. There it is. Okay. So in this router update section, we are going to provide our own file. Let me just find that file real quick. And there it is. Factory to ddword chk. And there we are. So what's going on here is we are, the router says, hey, I need to do an update, and I have old software. I may have security updates. I may have security flaws that have been updated and patched. I may have extra functionality that I want that the software engineers pushed to me, right? But what it needs is us to upload a file. And that file is going to have the new Netgear software. However, and this is actually a common security problem, that new Netgear software is actually our own software that does something completely different and utilizes the underlying hardware under it to do something completely different. And even though we're not technically trying to hack this router, that actually is a security vulnerability. So I find that pretty interesting. Now we're going to upload that, and all existing internet connections will be terminated. Well, that's very nice of you, but there was nothing connected to this anyways. So let's go ahead and press OK, and we are uploading. The firmware file is incorrect. Please get the firmware file and make sure it's the correct firmware for this product. Wow. Huh. So there's some kind of protection here. I didn't even know about that. All right. So now what we're going to have to do is we are going to have to bypass whatever protection or turn off whatever is checking against that file. And it says, hey, that's not actual Netgear. That might be something else. And we want to make sure that doesn't happen for the exact security reason I just explained. And I didn't even know that would happen. So excuse me, but I'm going to go figure out why that's not working. So I did some research on the error message, and I found forums with other newbies that experienced the exact same issue. I wasn't too worried until I found different forums with other newbies that experienced bigger issues. I even considered using Telnet or SSH to log into the router directly to make the changes, but I had no luck. Then I found that a downgrade might work. Downgrading to a legitimate Netgear version that doesn't have the update protection in place might allow me to upload arbitrary firmware. So I downloaded the old firmware, connected to the router, gave a shameless promotion for my blog, dev.to/shadow, and got the same error message. While looking up the error again, I found someone on a YouTube video uploading an IMG file instead of a CHK. It made me wonder if I was uploading the wrong file type, and I ended up going down an entire rabbit hole regarding IMG files. Turns out this actually had nothing to do with the error, but I still did learn a lot. After all this time, I finally find a CHK file that seems like it's going to work. It's loading, it's not quitting instantly, it's even rebooting the router. Alright, now let's look at the firmware version. Alright, okay. And success! Now we have a new firmware version and we've successfully downgraded to older firmware. Well, we know what that means. Now let's go and find our original ddwirt file and try to flash the router. And it's Alright, it's time to change my approach. At this point, I'm getting officially fed up. I keep upgrading and downgrading and researching and trying to figure out which version will be the magic version that allows me to upload ddwirt, and it keeps failing. But I realized something. Hackers don't give up. They don't stop. They don't quit. It's the secret behind every great hacker, engineer, scientist, or researcher, really. They know that they don't know the answer, but they trust that they'll be able to find the solution. And even though this is my first video, I want to show that I don't know everything on this channel, and I have to research just like you do. So I hope we can learn together, and I hope we remember to ask better questions, not more of them. Eventually, I found that I had to fire up my virtual machine, which we will install in a later video, log on to the FTP server of ddwirt, and download the firmware I needed for my router. I had to do this on my virtual machine because it was a Unix-based operating system, and there was a specific problem with Windows-based operating systems regarding the FTP download. So if you're following along or you want to do this, you'll probably have to have access to some sort of Unix system. From there, I just copied them over to my computer and gave them a test. Okay, that's different. It's actually loading. Okay. We're getting closer. Closer. I don't know what that means. Huh. This could be good or bad. This could just mean that the Netgear router successfully installed something and bricked itself, or it could mean that it doesn't know what to do. Now I'm gonna go check the nearby networks. Oh, here we are, ddwirt. Okay, so if your ddwirt has a password, it's going to be the same as the default password, and if it's completely open, then just connect. Sweet, we're connected. we can navigate to 192.168.1.1 in the browser, and you should be met with a page like this. Here we'll need to set the password that we're going to use to authenticate with this router. Please do not forget this password. If you do, you'll probably have to reset your entire router. And with the click of the Change Password button, we're officially logged in to DDWord. Now there's still a little bit more configuration to do, but congratulate yourself. Since we've got DDWord installed, I can finally show you all my notes on installing client mode. Just up until I found that client mode isn't what I needed. With a quick review of the linking routers page, I found that I actually didn't need client mode. While it's good for some implementations, this IoT lab wouldn't have worked if I used client mode, so I had to use the repeater mode of DDWord. In general, the repeater mode extends the wireless area of the first router to a second one, but specifically the repeater mode, not repeater bridge, makes sure that no computer in one subnet can talk to or interact with a computer in a different subnet, which for an IoT lab that may have malware or wireless attacks or any other random cyber things going on in it, that's exactly what we want. Let's install repeater mode. Now that we've got the router completely reset, let's go ahead and put the nail in the coffin here. First, we're going to connect to our stock DDWord install. So, have this all connected, and once we do that, we should be able to input the default password, and that should all work. And I'm on the wrong subnet, that's all right. That was me testing earlier. All right, so I'm going to set a simple username and an even simpler password just to make sure that this all works. Change password now. First, what we want to do is we want to head over to wireless. For wireless, we want to match our original access point. So the router you are trying to grab Wi-Fi from, match the settings of that one. Other than this setting right here, we want to put repeater, not repeater bridge, but repeater. My router is mixed, yours might be in only or something different. The SSID is Netgear in all caps. Wireless channel looks good, channel width looks good. Network configuration, yes, okay, great. Now, we want to add a virtual interface. That virtual interface is where we get to add our extra subnet. But it seems like it's its own separate Wi-Fi network, which is exactly what we want. I'm gonna call this ShadowNet, I don't know. That looks all right. We can always change this later. And we're gonna check everything off. So wireless SSID broadcast, that just means we'll be able to see this without going in the hidden network settings, which is fine. AP isolation, we'll leave that disabled. Optimize multicast traffic, leave that disabled. Network configuration, bridge, great. And we're gonna go down here and we're gonna press save. There, we want to click on wireless security. And we want to type in the password to our router, the first one. So that is going to be the one that we are trying to grab Wi-Fi from. Now, for the second one down here, that is going to be the password that you choose for your personal subnet or your personal access point. If it doesn't work, for instance, I might try to do a different password or something like that, and it will say, hey, I don't like that. It seems to be working now. But if it doesn't work, you may have to match the password of the first router. That's just how the wiki says you have to do it sometimes. There may be a few ways around it, but if it doesn't work, you have to match the password as a first router. For me, though, I'm going to do a slightly different password, and I'm going to save. And okay, now I'm getting the issue. So I'm going to go ahead and match the first router, and that should be fine. All right, cool. Now, I want to go on over to setup, and I'll change router name to Shadows Router. Just something to put as a router name. And let's see, the local IP address is going to be any other subnet than the first subnet that the first router is already on. So I know the first router is on 192.168.1.1. I want this to be on 192.168, guess what? .2.1. It's not that hard, right? It's just one subnet up, so that way we're not crossing packets, right? I will leave this DHCP server enabled because I want to make sure that any IoT device that is connected instantly gets its own IP address. I don't feel like having to set up static IPs for each IoT device. It's just way too much, so I'm just going to leave that enabled, and I'm fine with that. It's easier for me to connect, especially as an attacker, and nmap the topography rather than actually try to set something static and say, oh, this is your IP, this is your IP. So yeah, I'll just leave that enabled, but it's totally fine if you have to do something different. And for here, I'm on the eastern side, so I'm going to say US Eastern. US Eastern, good. And then the last one, oh, don't forget to press save. And then for the last one, you can go to security, and some people disable this SPI firewall. In the wiki, it says that if there are random issues, you might want to try disabling this, and it may help. For me, I want to keep it enabled just to see if things work, and if they don't, then I'll go ahead and disable it. But for now, I'm just going to leave that enabled, so I'm going to save even though I didn't do anything here, and then I'm going to apply settings. Here, it's going to take a little while. It just applied a few settings. As you can see, it now says Shadows Router instead of DUWORT. I'm going to press that again, just because that was way shorter than it should have been. And now I'm going to wait, and it's going to say processing probably for about 2 to 3 minutes. And then after those 2 to 3 minutes, this page is going to completely disappear. And oh, wow, okay, that was a lot quicker than I thought. And then the router is going to be doing some blinking and some lights and stuff like that. You just leave it all alone. And some people say you need to do power cycles during this time or after this. I just leave it alone until I see a new SSID, which the one we set, pop up. So I'm going to wait until we see that, and I'll be right back. So one small thing that I'm noticing right now, one small thing. I'm noticing that the new SSID that I set up, ShadowNet, is completely open. It does not have a password on it like I wanted. So I'm going to try to connect, but it shouldn't work. If it doesn't have a password, I'm going to have to log back into the one that says DDWORT, and then I'm going to set that password again. Maybe I forgot to press save, but it's completely okay. I'm trying to connect. It doesn't look like it's going to work, and it shouldn't work because this network has to match the original settings of the first network as far as the security side. So it seems to be working, and it says no internet open, but I'm gonna try it, and I'm gonna go to 192.168.2.1, and then I'm going to get out of apply, and it seems to be working, but I know I don't have internet connectivity. 1, because my Windows computer says not connected, and 2, because it says WAN IP localhost, which is not a real wide area network IP. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna change some very small settings. It's completely okay. All right, we're gonna log back in. This is the actual main password that we just set. Let's see what we have. Don't need that to save. This is services. Now I want to go over to security. Okay, security looks all right. Wireless, it was wireless security. That's what I'm looking for. Sometimes this takes a while. There we are. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this, make sure that these two match, and then I'm going to type that in again and make sure that these two match, and then save. And now we should have, this is a physical interface, this is a physical interface. What I'm not seeing is I'm not seeing the virtual interface. Oh, there it is. Okay, never mind. Ah, okay. WPA2 personal. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to see. Now we want to save. It should be asking me to input a password here, but if it doesn't, okay, there we are. All right, now I want to copy the same password for this one. Actually, I'll leave this up. I want to see what happens if I try a different password because I don't think it'll work. It won't work. Yep, invalid. So it has to be the same password, and it's all because it's really all on the same network. It looks like it's not to outsiders, but it's all on the same router, just two different subnets. So we can't have passwords for each subnet. Well, we can, but that's more of an enterprise solution type thing. We're just doing this in our home, so it's fine. It's fine. So here we're going to save, and now those two, this physical one, WLO, and the virtual interface are the same password. And now that those are the same password, I'm going to save again just because this is a little bit finicky sometimes. And now I'm going to apply settings. Now we should definitely see a password on ShadowNet. Make sure you do virtual interfaces. I clearly messed up and I did that one is dual band, so it has 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. We want to make sure that we're not editing 5G, but the virtual one that we just made. So just make sure, because I just made that mistake too. It's completely all right. And again, this is going to take a while. It may restart or reset. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It just depends on what settings you have to change and what that process may look like. But you just wait here and then wait till it pops up. And then from there, we should be on the correct subnet. So let's see. Okay, so I've never seen this before, but it still says processing, please wait. And the router's definitely stopped blinking for a while now. And I can see the new SSID, but the only thing that's a little weird or different is that it still says processing, please wait. Normally it doesn't do that, so I'm gonna go ahead and try to connect. I see the new SSID up. It says ShadowNet, and it has a password. So now we're gonna enter that password, and let's see what happens, because this should work. I don't know why it still says processing, please wait. That should be fine. So it took a little longer than normal, but I noticed a small issue I had, and I saw that this wireless mode didn't say repeater, but it said AP. And once I fixed that and put it on repeater, it gave me connected and secured over here on the ShadowNet. So now I can say google.com, and there we are, right? Also, I know I'm connected because I have the WAN IP, which is just a normal node on the subnet for the first router. So it totally works. It's 100% good. And now we can start to connect our IoT devices, which is nothing but connecting a phone to the devices and to this new network. So now we can do that. And I'm not going to take you guys through that just because there's a whole bunch of different IoT devices you may have, but that's the bulk of it. Now we have a pretty Internet of Things lab, complete with cable management. Yeah, so we've got one smart plug over there that is a no-name smart plug that nobody cares about. There's a more popular brand of smart plug right there. And then we've got the big two, the Google Home and the Amazon Alexa, complete with our DD-Wert router that is completely sectioned off from the rest of our network. This is exactly what we wanted.